So, the ongoing battle of serif versus sans serif. This is much like the ongoing Mac versus PC battle, and like that, there is really no one right answer as to which fonts and which style of fonts work for graphic design pieces, although there are tendencies. This is the URL for a website that I'm going to take you to for a brief tour of a page that talks about serif and sans serif typefaces, along with some examples. And I suggest that you jot this down and go visit this site because it is a really clever information graphics website that is clearly describing how serif and sans serif differ and how they can probably be best used in graphic design. Again, there's no real definitive answer, but this is a very nicely laid out page that talks about the differences here. So, as you know, serifs are the little feet that extend off of the edges of many different typefaces, and there are beautifully designed serif typefaces out there. There are, of course, as well, many different beautiful and simple and elegant sans serif typefaces, okay? So these two superhero font classifications are battling it out for dominance here. Which is better, okay? There is a tendency, and it's listed here right away, that we're starting to see that by and large, serif fonts are easier to read on the printed page, whereas the sans serif fonts tend to be better in web and screen-based applications. So if you scroll down this very long page, this is actually a nicely designed information graphic. It talks about resolution. DPI means dots per inch for the printed page, and on the screen we work with resolution called PPI, pixels per inch. And so there's information here about that and why for printing work the serifs tend to do better than on the screen. Okay. So there's talk here also about the classifications and why serifs can work and why they might get in the way sometimes. Some people feel the serifs lead the eye across the page, and that can certainly be the case. And you can also use serifs really nicely on screen if you treat the text correctly. And of course you can use sans serif typefaces beautifully in print, again, if you treat it right, if you size things beautifully, if you're clear with contrast and spacing, appropriate type styles and faces, things like that. They do recommend that if you use a serif typeface in normal body copy, but then you have to use very small text, that sans serif tends to be the way to go. I do have an example of that I'll show you in a second. So if you scroll down, you'll see some more examples. I talked about this in an earlier video this week, type classifications, and with good examples of the different ones. Rockwell, for instance, is a great example of the slab serif classification. So this is good general typographic knowledge as well as serif versus sans. So studies were given, and people tended to prefer the sans serif fonts for web use. And these fonts up here, Georgia, Arial, and Verdana, were designed specifically for screen use. And you'll see that Georgia does have serifs. So again, it can be used if you're careful. And so the conclusion that was drawn from these studies and surveys shows that people are tending more towards sans serif for web and screen-based uses and tending more towards serif typefaces for print. Okay? The best thing to keep in mind, though, is this mantra down here at the bottom. The best font choices are ones where the readers don't notice the font but the message instead. You want to design your typography so that it's what we call transparent, that readers will not be distracted by the design of the type, but rather what the message is saying. So always keep that in mind. Now here's an example of a website. This is apple.com, and as you can probably expect, they go for all sans serif. Very clean, very modern site design here. They are strictly sans serif type, and they use it in lots of different elegant ways. Now this is the NewYorkTimes.com website. Now they're going a little bit different. New York Times is a traditional company. It's been around for many years, and it has a old-fashioned looking, classic masthead there. They tend towards a serif typeface, certainly. Times New Roman was designed, in fact, for the London Times newspaper. This website uses a mixture here. You'll notice that the small text is going to a sans serif, but they do feature a serif font. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's a derivation of Times in their body copy here. Notice this. This might actually be, it looks a little like Garamond to me, but I'm not entirely sure. But you'll notice they do mix. So you can see that there are still mixes of serif and sans on the web with more of a tendency towards the sans serif. So I'm hopeful that this will be interesting to you and that you'll go to this website and visit and really get a sense of how the two different styles can work, and they can work together too. Good luck.